Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage. Today's guest is one of the most talented musicians, singers, songwriters, actors we've ever interviewed. From my home state of Georgia, he's been in the business over 60 years, Ray Stevens. Ray is a recent inductee into the Country Music Hall of Fame as well as numerous songwriting halls of fame. Ray had his own television show back in 1970 on one of the three major networks. He's currently has a show on PBS. He built one of the most beautiful nightclubs you could ever visit here in Nashville. His talent just is limitless. He's just a great guy. My friend Ray Stevens. If you like what you see, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. And for those of you who can help, we now have a Patreon account. Once again, the great Ray Stevens. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame. Today's guest is the great Ray Stevens. Ray, thank you for coming in.
It's my pleasure.
During all the craziness of this COVID thing. So, like I was saying, I got a phone call this morning on my way in, and it was from Mike Curb. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to go interview Ray Stevens for the show." And he goes, "Oh my gosh, we just signed him to a new deal." And so I said, "Well, we'll talk about it. You want to add to his excitement?"
Well, I'm glad to hear he's excited. I've known Mike for 100 years, and great record man, no question about that. And I was with him as an artist on Curb Records years ago. And it's good to be back because I think he knows what he's doing, and especially in these times where the record business is in sort of, I guess you could say, a state of flux. And he seems to be keeping his head above water with the Curb Records. And so like I started to say a second ago, I'm glad to be back with somebody who knows what to do in these times.
Well, he does. He's having hit records, you know. So anyway, you're from Georgia. I'm from Georgia. Matter of fact, the guy who took my place in my band when I moved up here, his last name was Ragsdale.
Is that right?
David Ragsdale, and he's been playing with Kansas for 30 years or so now. Fiddle player, but I'm just wondering if by chance you might be kin to.
It's quite possible. I don't know. To explain what you're alluding to here, my real name, my birth name is Ragsdale. And when I was 17, I was signed to make my first record with Capitol. Ken Nelson was the producer. And he didn't like the name Ragsdale. And I said, "Well, you're gonna make my mama mad."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, what's your mama's maiden name?" And I said, "Stevens." He said, "That's a good name." So he renamed me Ray Stevens. I said, "Well, now wait a minute, you're gonna make my daddy mad." He said, "Well, listen, we can't please everybody. You want to make a record or not?" And I said, "Yes, sir. Call me anything you want." Mm-hmm. So it got changed. I was 17 years old.
It worked.
Well, so far.
Yeah. Speaking of Georgia, Bill Lowery was a big part of your life there, wasn't he?
Absolutely. He was the guy that got me started.
Yeah.
Music publisher. And as a matter of fact, he was just starting out as a music publisher. And I went to a little Baptist church close to my house. And my Sunday school teacher said, "You need to meet Bill Lowery." I must have got up and played the piano and sang in church or something. He said, "You need to meet Bill Lowery." And I said, "Who's Bill Lowery?" And he said, "Well, he just started a music publishing company and he's looking for songs. You do write songs, don't you?" And I said, "Well, I do now."
Yeah.
So I went to see Bill and he said, "Well, write me a song, lad." You remember he always called all the young guys that wrote for him, lad, hey, lad. So I wrote a song that night and took it back the next day, and he liked it. And on the strength of that song, he was connected. He knew people in positions of high importance in the record business, and Capitol signed me. Ken Nelson signed me on the strength of that song.
Did you just continue as an artist yourself mainly, or were you writing for other artists?
I wrote songs, and anybody that wanted to cut one, I was very happy to let them do that. You know, at first I was still learning a little bit how to write songs, and so I'm the guy that cut most of my songs.
Yeah.
But I've been learning to write songs ever since then. You know, I'm still learning.
I bought, when they were closing down Southern Track Studio, which was Bill Lowery's studio.
Right.
I was so impressed with Mr. Lowery that I wanted to, to honor him here in the museum and along with Atlanta's music industry. So I went in and got his office, basically got his desk and his chair.
Right.
And before we did the deal with the Grammys, we had to rearrange things. Kind of had recreated his office here. And one of the records that was hanging in there was Ahab the Arab. Now, was that?
Yeah, he published that.
Let me tell you about Ahab the Arab, the sheik of the burning sand. He had emeralds and rubies just a-dripping off of him, had a ring on every finger of his hand. He wore a big old turban wrapped around his head and a scimitar by his side. Every evening, about midnight, he'd jump on his camel named Clyde and ride.
And that was one of the first songs I wrote. This was in 1962, and I had just moved from Atlanta to Nashville because Shelby Singleton called Bill and said, would Ray like a job? And Bill said, well, why don't you ask him? And so he said, you want a job? I said, doing what? He said, assistant A&R. And I said, oh, great, what does that pay? He says, $50 a week.
I think that was the standard back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I said, well, Shelby, I'd love to, but I can't live on $50 a week. And he said, oh, and you get to play on all the sessions. And I said, I'll be right there.
Yeah.
Because at that time, Mercury was cutting, 100, 200 sessions a year.
And Shelby was the head of Mercury then.
And he was in charge of a Nashville office for Mercury.
Yeah.
So I moved up here on January 2nd of 62 and went to work with Jerry Kennedy and in the A&R department working for Shelby.
We brought Ray Stevens to town. He worked as an assistant for me for many years and played piano on a lot of sessions and played trumpet on some. And he can play anything he picks up, including he can write the arrangements for all the strings and stuff. So I took him to New York one time and we did a session with Dusty Springfield, and he wrote all the string parts for the whole session.
He's just really brilliant, isn't he? I mean,
oh yeah, he can play anything he picks up,
And such an unbelievable lyric writer as well. There was only one Shelby. Such a unique guy, man.
Oh, he really was. And I had met him earlier. The reason he knew me, there's a little show out in East Point, Georgia. You know where it is, WTJH. But they had a show on Saturday nights called the Georgia Jubilee, and all the local talent, Jerry Reed, myself, would all go out and Joe South and play the show. I think it was $50 too. And they would book a big name to come in though and headline the show so they could sell tickets. And I remember Shelby brought the Big Bopper in, J.P. Richardson, and he sang Chantilly Lace. And the crowd went crazy. They had heard it on the radio and they knew it was a hit. Everybody knew it was a hit. And so I was on that show, and Shelby met me then. And so that's how he came to call me later to offer me the job at Mercury. But I moved up, and the first session, I moved up January 2nd, and the first session was January 20th, my first session. And the night before the session, I had songs, but I didn't like any of them. So the night before the session, I wrote Ahab the Arab in a fit of panic and took it in, and I said, Shelby, let's cut this instead of these. He says, fine, do whatever you want to do. And so we cut it, and sure enough, it was a hit.
No kidding. I mean, that was a massive hit. In Columbus, where I'm from, I mean, you couldn't turn the radio on
Yeah.
without that. And then, I guess it was my freshman year or so in high school. We had an assembly one day at Columbus High School, and I think it was a senior class that had done some kind of skit to Guitars In. And they were wearing leopard skin suits and everything. It was a massive hit. Then, when I was in Columbus College, The Streak.
I said, don't look at the, oh yes, they call him the street. Fastest thing on 2 feet. He's just as proud as he can be of his anatomy. He gonna give us a peek.
And people were literally just walking up totally naked with a mask on.
Oh my goodness.
First time I've seen people wear a mask now.
Now they have to.
Yeah, they have to now. They had to then to be totally naked there. But have you always just been funny? I mean, was that just?
I don't know. I've always appreciated humor and comedians. I really am not. I sort of consider myself a comedian at this point of my life, but back in the early days, I was just a piano player and a singer, and I told jokes on the side, and wrote funny songs.
Well, they say that that's really the hardest thing there is to do is to be funny, to be a comedian, more so than being a serious actor or something like that.
I don't know.
But anyway, you scored at it big time. So you got to Nashville, and I've seen pictures of you with the A-Team players at Columbia.
Yeah.
At the Quonset Hut.
Right. Oh, I played on hundreds of sessions back in the old days.
What's some of the ones you played on, some of the artists?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I really didn't. One day I remember Shelby was the producer, and we cut 3 hits. We cut Ahab the Arab in the morning. We cut Walk On By Leroy Van Dyke in the afternoon, both Lowery songs, by the way.
Right.
And then we cut Wooden Heart with Joe Dowell at 6.
Yeah. Shelby was, man, if I was on a record label, I'd want him to be the promotion guy. I mean, he was telling me that when he did Harper Valley PTA, that he was literally going to the pressing plant and taking the records, and the boxes were hot. That's how fresh the records were. And driving them to the Nashville airport to make sure they got on the planes, because he knew how important it was.
Yeah.
To get them distributed while they were literally hot. Like Jerry Reed, when you're hot, you're hot.
Yeah. Well, Shelby was one of a kind. No question about it.
Always thinking, trying to come up with a better way of doing things. Everything is beautiful. Was that your biggest song, you think?
I would say it's the biggest song. The biggest selling record was The Streak.
Really?
Oh, yeah. But Everything is Beautiful has been recorded by not only me, but a couple of 100 other people.
Right.
And that was a song I had, a brilliant mind here. I had gotten a call from Hal David to come out to California and listen to a Bacharach David song for a cowboy movie. They wanted me to sing in the movie. I said, okay. I flew out and went to Bacharach's house, and he played Raindrops, Falling on My Head. And I said, well, thank you, it's a great song, but I'm going to pass because I've just spent 2 weeks in the studio recording Sunday Morning Coming Down. And if I don't put that out next, I think somebody will beat me out with it. And they said, fine. And they called BJ, and of course he had a big hit with it, Raindrops. But they put out Sunday Morning Coming Down by me, and we sold 12. It wasn't a hit at all. Johnny Cash cut it later, and it was a big hit.
Yeah.
But I had banked a lot of juice on that song, and it didn't turn out for me. And I had just turned down Raindrops, and so I was just signed with Andy Williams' label, Barnaby, and they said we need a song. And I was signed to host the Andy Williams Summer Show on NBC, summer of 1970. And they said, we need a song now for the first record that can be used as the theme song for this television show. So I said, okay. So I just chained myself to the piano and wrote till I thought I had it. And I wrote Everything Is Beautiful. And sure enough, it filled the bill, and it was the theme for that TV show on NBC. Plus, it was a big hit record.
Everything is beautiful in its own way, like a starry summer night or snow-covered winter's day. Sing it, children. Everybody's beautiful. Only under God's heaven, the world's gonna find a way.
Well, getting back to Sunday Morning Coming Down, Christopherson was blown away with your version of it.
Well, I'm glad he liked it. He sure wrote some great songs, and that was one of them, you know.
Well, he was saying that no one had ever spent as much time working on one of his songs, trying to perfect it. He was very thankful,
Well, bless his heart, I did spend a lot of time and a lot of Fred's money, Fred Foster.
Oh, yeah, Fred,
I was
yeah.
on the monument at the time. But he got it back, of course, but the money.
Yeah.
But, I was thinking, boy, this has got to be a hit,
Well, you were right.
Well, not my record.
Well, you were right about the song, though.
Yeah, oh well.
That's what, when I used to work for Billy Sherrill, he used to say, it's just a matter of putting the
right artist
with the right
song.
Right.
Yeah, I think looking back on it, I think people could not visualize Ray Stevens singing a song about waking up Sunday morning stoned.
Right.
So I didn't have the image to sell the song.
Yeah.
I should have cut "Help Me Make It Through the Night" because Beckham had 3 new Christopherson songs, and he was my good friend. He called me Bob Beckham.
Mm-hmm.
Said, "Come listen to these 3 songs. You can have any one of them you want." And I think it was Sunday Morning Coming Down, Help Me Make It Through the Night, and For the Good Times, or one of those, me and Bobby McGee. And I should have taken Help Me Make It Through the Night, but there you go. Hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
The Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum has been celebrating the men and women who make the music of our lives since 2006. The Musicians Hall of Fame is the one and only museum in the world that honors the musicians that played on the greatest recordings of all time.
It's a music city, huh? It's, where else are you going to get the cats, all the cats that are in this room?
From Hank to Hendrix, from LA to Nashville, the Musicians Hall of Fame will take you on a musical journey highlighting the talented musicians that created the soundtrack of our lives. Come see what you've heard, and while visiting, check out the interactive Grammy Museum Gallery at the Musicians Hall of Fame. Located in the heart of downtown Nashville in the first floor of the historic Nashville Municipal Auditorium. See you soon at the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum.
Welcome back to Musicians Hall of Fame with Ray Stevens. Like we were saying in the break, for me to interview you, there's so much to talk about with you that I really don't even know where to start. You've had, like you said, you had a national television show like Glenn Campbell did, and
Yeah, well,
you've had all these hit records from the funny stuff to the very serious stuff, and you've been a session musician and a record label industry person. It's just.
well, I just decided that I was going to do this come hell or high water. My dad used to ask me, when are you going to get a real job? And I would say, well, I think this is a real job, And he became a believer a little later, but I've been doing this now for 63 years. And I can't imagine having spent my life any other way. I've enjoyed it every minute of it.
Well, like we said, you just signed a new record deal. So.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think we hit on this. Mike Herb was telling me it's a big deal. It's like five different albums.
I have been in the studio making records for, several years now, and just what I wanted to record. And I have a concept for a box set. I recorded a thing called the Encyclopedia of Recorded Comedy Music several years ago, and the concept is record all the big comedy hits down through the years, and it's got I think a shelf life that'll be pretty long. And I've got another idea. I'm going to call it musical highlights or something like that of the 20th century. And I think it'll be a box set of over 100 songs. And the first 5 albums, what's 5 times 12? 60?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I got 60 cut, and that's going to be volume 1. And then I'm in the process of cutting the second 60, and that'll be volume 2, and the whole project will cover every decade of the 20th century. And my concept is to make the box that it comes in would have iconic pictures of the 20th century. And they would range from everything from the moon landing to Marilyn Monroe's dress being blown up to the sailor kissing the girl on Broadway
Right.
after World War II, the flag at Iwo Jima, pictures like that.
Yeah.
And all these songs, one from at least one, more than one for most decades, but songs from all 10 decades of the 20th century.
Well, Mike wanted me to just make sure that you knew he was extremely excited about it. So,
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And,
so
he's-
you hit on something that nobody else I'd ever seen do. How did you do the deal with? Was it Turner Broadcasting, or when you started selling?
Yeah, those were they would give you a 30 or 60 or 90-second spot,
Right.
and they would participate in the sale. And my videos would sell a lot, and so Ted Turner got a lot of that, some of that money, and they would show it during Braves games, and it was just very fortuitous that at that time there was so much time available
Right.
on the cable channels to show the spots that we had made to sell that long form video.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. You just kind of just nailed it. I mean, that was, if there was a time to do it, that was probably the best time ever, right?
Yeah, being at the right place at the right time has a lot of merit.
And you hit a nerve with a lot of people. I mean, you hit something. A lot of people wanted to have something that could laugh and.
Well, the VHS machine had just come out.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted to buy something to play on their new VHS machine, and
you had it.
they bought it.
Yeah, that's great. Something else I wanted to talk to you about. One of the people that I was so proud to say he was a friend of mine was Chet Atkins.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And that's talking about not making them like that anymore. To me.
Well, he was speaking of timely. His presence here was very timely. The music business was just in the right spot for him to be very successful. He cut so many hit records for RCA. Oh, you just can't count them all. And he was my good friend. He used to call me and book me on sessions as a sideman or as a background singer or whatever. And at that time, I could use the money,
Yeah.
And so I was very happy to oblige and show up at the RCA studios and be on a lot of Chet's sessions.
You're not going to remember this, I hope. But it was my birthday. It was July 27th, 1978, and I had just moved here. And I had just borrowed 90 cents from my best friend that I had met up here to get gas to get back to my apartment. And remember the Colonel Bill had those street parties behind CBS Records?
Oh, Colonel Bill Hall.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 And so they had these, and you couldn't do this anymore because they were giving, it was free beer and Coke and hot dogs. And
Oh, it was great.
there was
yeah.
a band on a flatbed out in front of Mercury Records out
Right,
there.
right.
And it's my birthday, and I'm busted, and I got a party, right there behind CBS. And I look over, and there's you and Chet standing there talking, and I'm like, Ted Atkins and Ray Stevens are standing in the street, and there's no security around them. I've got to take advantage of this. So I went over. I said, did the nerd thing, and said, Chet, I just wanted to shake your hand. And he goes, kind of, a little bit hesitant, And I turned around, I walked back, and I was expected to get tackled by Secret Service or something, And I get about 20 feet away, and I turn around, and I look back, and Chet's still, kind of looking over his shoulder at me, he's probably worried a little bit too, but I had no idea that he would end up being such a dear friend to me, and not,
Yeah.
and I mean, he came. We were interviewing Don McLean a couple of months ago, I think, and Don was a big friend and fan of Chet's too.
Yeah.
And I was just telling him that Chet came out to my guitar shop and got on a flatbed truck and played for my grand opening for me.
Oh, great.
And I was like, who does that?
He would do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And anyway, he was. He said, "Now, Joe, you had a song you wanted Vince Gill to hear?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, go give me a copy." I said, "He was my song plugger."
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
have that Chet for a song plugger. Just what a wonderful guy.
Yeah, he was, and I miss him. We used to hang out a lot together. I threw him out of the golf cart one time. We were playing over at Hillwood. Chet and Bob Beckham were members of Hillwood Country Club.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I'm going to join Hillwood and play golf with Chet and Bob, So I did, and I was driving the cart, and I hooked it. It went in the woods. And Chet's in the shotgun seat, and I'm driving up the hill from the tee box, and I thought I saw my ball over to the left, and I said, there it is, and I did it. And Chet went out of the cart. He didn't speak to me for about 3 holes. I'll never forget that.
And I think Steve Warner's also feels the same about Chet. And
Oh yes, Stevie.
and Don Everly told me if it wasn't for Chet, there would have never been an Everly Brothers.
Yeah, I don't know that story, but I don't doubt it.
He just said that Chet didn't look at our hair or where we were from. He just listened to the music.
Yeah.
That was the way he was.
Yeah.
You've built this incredible supper club, right?
I don't know. I call it a showroom.
So,
And we serve alcohol. And in order to serve alcohol legally, you have to serve food. So I kind of patterned it after an old school Vegas casino club. And I've played a lot of them down through the years. And so I've had experience on how they work. And the Cabaret, I used a lot of the features of the Desert Inn when I built the Cabaret because the front stage goes out into the audience. Now, I built my front stage lower than the one at the Desert Inn, but it's still, when I'd work the Desert Inn, I could walk right out and shake hands with the people, and the table's right up against the stage. And I could shake hands with the people that were there. They weren't in theater seating like so many places now, and it was just so much more fun to be able, if you're in the audience, to be able to sit at a table with your wife or girlfriend or friends or whatever, have a drink, have a sandwich or whatever, and see the show. And I thought, man, at my age, I'm just going to do what's fun.
yeah.
So I built the Cabaret, Cabaray.
And what a great name.
Misspelled it on purpose.
Yeah.
To sort of incorporate all those features that those old places in Vegas used to have. And it's really a lot of fun. Before we got closed down by the coronavirus, we were going great guns, and I think as soon as the vaccine gets distributed, we'll be back in business. But right now, we can't open because we can't sell enough tickets.
And that's a beautiful venue. And
Yeah, well, thanks.
I can't imagine what it took to design and build something like that.
Well, you know, I just took notes from all my memories of a lot of clubs that I've worked.
Well, Ray, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time on Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage.